Alright, so we're turning
Kaf Dalet Shvat, Parshas Mishpatim, Shir Klali.
Toshin Samachet. Alright, so turning to chapter Kof Dalet, Pasik Zayin, Pasha Mishpatim. It's right near the end of the parsha. So we, in last week's parsha, we had the main sipur of Kabbalah HaTorah, the reception of the Torah by the Jewish people. And then we had B'ikad Yasser Sadibres and the immediate Inyanim after that. Here in this parsha, there's a whole additional description. Even though in Parsha Yisro there was also a detailed description of the Hachonas to Matan Torah on the part of Moshe Rabbeinu, like we mentioned at the beginning of last week's Shir, that the Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch at the end of Hilchos Pesach that Moshe Rabbeinu on the day after Rosh Chodesh Sivan, he began to prepare the Jewish people for the inyan of Kabbalah HaTorah. So we see in this week's parsha, at the end of the parsha, a series of detailed inyanim which are not mentioned over there, even though, as we said in last week's parsha, he's also Ma'arich. The Chumash is Ma'arich in the preparations for Matan Torah. It goes into some detail. But here we deal with a series of inyanim which are not mentioned over there. And here occurs in the sequence of those preparations, there occurs the famous, what you might call motto of the Jewish people, which is rung over the history and is mentioned in many, many places in Medrashi Chazal and all the way through the literature of the Rabbanim and the Geonim and the Gedolei Yisrael B'chol HaDoros, the famous sisma, as you might call it, the famous motto of Naaseh V'Nishma. And we see that mentioned in our Pasuk, Vayikach Sefer HaBrias, that Moshe Rabbeinu took the Sefer HaBrias. What Rashi said, that was a sefer that he'd written, that's mentioned earlier, that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote down everything which had the Eibishter had told him, including Sefer Bereshis, and up to now the mitzvahs that they had been given. What Rashi's already told us, that they'd been given mitzvahs Shabbos, v'kibud Aveim, v'dinim, v'oidinyonim ke'elu, what the dinim already mentioned at the beginning of this week's Parsha Barichas. So that was the Sefer HaBrias. Vayikro bi'oznei ha'om, and he read that, made it audible into the ears literally of all the people. Vayemru kol asher diber Hashem naaseh v'nishma. Everything what the Eibishter has said, we will do, and we will pay attention, or we will understand, we will listen, appreciate. What the word nishma in the Lashon of Torah has in itself numerous implications, amongst them being the idea of hearing in the sense of der Herren, in other words, not just to hear, but to appreciate and to take into a inward hearing, and to also border on the concept of understanding and appreciating, which can also be called to hear, as is well known in reference to the inyan and chassidus of Riyah and Shmiya being connected with Chokhmah and Bina, that the inyan of Shmiya is connected with Asoga, which is Bina. So we see here the famous Hakdoma of Naaseh Lenishma. Now already, just a few psukim back, it's written that the Yidden said that everything that the Eibishter has said in Pasuk Gimel, it's written that he told the people, not only he read them what he'd written down, but he told them, SHK Mishpatim, Vayan kol ha'am kol echad. They all answered in one voice, unanimously, Vayemru kol hadvarim asher diber Hashem naaseh. We'll do, without the nishma. And in Pasha Yisrael, in the preparations for Matan Torah, prior to the actual giving of the Torah, quite early in the piece, it's written over there also that the Yidden said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Koel asher diber Hashem naaseh, we will do it. So in other words, we've already been told twice that they said naaseh. In this pasuk, there occurs an additional emphasis, that Koel asher diber Hashem naaseh v'ni nishma. In other words, that we'll do and we'll also appreciate. But the big emphatic praise of the Jewish people is that they put the doing before the appreciating and the understanding. And that's the famous sisma, we said, that rings through the ages, nice vanishma. So the fascinating thing is that Rashi doesn't say anything about it. It doesn't comment on it whatsoever. And for that matter, we find very little comment in the other great Rishonim about this absolutely history-ringing pasuk, which should have demanded a lengthy attention from all the great Meforshim, and we don't find it. They go into very little. Also, over there in Pasha Yisrael, when it's written that the Yidden said, everything which Hashem has spoken, we will do, Rashi doesn't comment on it. But over here also not. He doesn't comment on the fact that the Yidden said everything that Hashem has said we will do. He doesn't comment about that either. Now when he gets a nice of a nishma, that would be mavakish to say something. Rashi he gives detailed attention to the other pesukim and tends somewhat to accept that as a natural thing that doesn't really need to be commented about. And the only one who does say something is Rashi's Einikul, the Rashbam, what's going on. He's the Rabbeinu Shmuel ben Meir, but he was the son of Rashi's son-in-law. In other words, he was mamish Aidim. Einikul, our grandson. He says, nice of a nishma. He offers a suggestion that we'll do everything that we've heard up till now, and nishma, we're also ready to appreciate and listen. In other words, we're ready to do what we're ever told in the future. What we haven't heard yet. Why is that called nishma? Because they haven't really heard what that is yet. So, but when we hear it, then of course we'll be ready to do it. And that's what the Rashbam suggests, because he wants to know what's the additional word for nishma. Naaseh v'nishma. So he suggests that naaseh is what we've already heard up to now. Nishma, what we will do, it's like adding naaseh into the future. As is the Rambam, the Rashbam. Apart from that, we don't find any lengthy comment in the great early commentators, at least the ones that appear in the Mikoros Gedolos of Misovi, going to get to that. So, ask yourself the question, just briefly, even though that's not our main concern this evening, just a brief suggestion, that we suggest maybe two inyonim bazer, why our sages don't, or our early commentators and the great commentators b'derech ha-poshut on the Torah don't make a big reference to that inyan. It is al derech, we mentioned in last week's year that the Alter Rebbe in Torah even though that's Chassidus, it's not the derech ha-pshat. Of the Alter Rebbe says something which is very korev el ha-pshat, as we mentioned last week, that so great was the revelation that occurred at Sinai, and so unbelievably great was the revelation in the neshamas of the Yidden, and that was what he called kofa aleim har kigigis, that it wasn't really that they to force them, but he just gave them such unbelievable revelations in their souls. So that it was almost a natural thing that they would say Naisava Veni. In other words, that if we examine the whole pomp and splendor that went on here at Matan Torah, because we see that there was a tremendous build-up to Matan Torah, and Moshe Rabbeinu going up and coming back, and then reporting to the Yidden what the Eibusher had just said, and then there was the 3 days of limitation of not being able to go near the mountain, and then the 3 days of marital purity, with the whole thing of the tremendous number of preparations and the whole time, and then prior to the actual giving of the Torah, already it's mashma on the day before, the mountain was already full of smoke, and it was ash and everything, Baroi Shahar, with the whole thing. All these inyanim would naturally cause anybody to react in a most profound way and give himself entirely away to Elikus if he saw that the Eibishter Mamish came to present himself in such an unmistakable, tremendously powerful way. And it's well known that there's a famous principle brought down in our Yom Yom, that Dafki, because there was so much unbelievable pomp and splendor, that there was like ayin hora after that. That's what caused the first luchos to be broken. Shalta behem ayin hora, masha in the luchos shniyos were Dafki given. They caught quietly when Moshe Rabbeinu was on the Har. Nobody knew anymore what was going on. Very, very quietly, he came down later with the second luchos. However, Benegel Inyoneinu, it's just an unbelievable gilui, and it took place in a way that called out and was meant to call out Ava Rabba Ad Kedikach, as we described it last week, in the hearts of all the Yidden, that they just committed themselves unconditionally and absolutely to anything the Eibusher would say, didn't they? They don't have to worry now about Shman Kriyat Shema. Hopefully you will tomorrow morning, but not right now. So the far, we could suggest that's one reason. Another thing is, if you examine over there in Parsha Yisrael, and it's not my Indian to go into that right now, if you examine over there in Parsha Yisrael, you'll see that the first time the Yidden said Kol Asher Diber in the past, and also here it's also written in the past, Kol Asher Diber Hashem Naaseh V'Nishma. That could limit it maybe. That could say, like the Rashbam said, that we're only talking about what was up till now. So then would be the greatness would be the word Nishma, not the word Nas. What we heard, then we know. And we're prepared to do that. But Nishma, we haven't heard yet, and that we're prepared nonetheless to whatever we will hear, to devote ourselves. But if you look over there in Parsha Yisrael, that first statement was made after the second day after Rosh Chodesh. It was quite early in the piece when the Eibusher said, it's what's called the Yom HaSgula, that particular day every year. Nowadays it's called Yom HaSgula, because that's when the Eibusher said to Yidden that you will be a Sgula li mikol ha'amim, atem tiyu li Sgula mikol ha'amim, atem tiyu mamleches kohenim v'goy kodesh. Holy people. It's after that it's written Kol Asher Diber Hashem Naaseh, will do. So maybe the implication is that hidden in those words is really the whole meaning of what Matan Torah was demanding of Yidden and what it was really all about. That to be a holy people means that you're going to devote yourself entirely to whatever Hashem will demand of you, and that will bring you to be a sgula, an unusual thing. And if you look over there, Rashi says, Atem tiyuli sgula, Rashi says, Im tikablu alechem, if you'll take on yourselves. And it's not really so clear what does he mean with that. In other words, that the implication was, bear in mind that Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, and the Eibusher had already told them they were going to serve him on this Har. And Rashi brings over there, that means Matan Torah. So Rashi's already told you that the Yidden were expecting Matan Torah. So in a way, Kol Asher Diber Hashem, what Hashem has already spoken, Naaseh, we will do. Yeah, that implies already that everything he said, what did he say? That you're going to receive a Torah, and not just, a few details that have been up to now, but you're going to receive a Torah Shleima, and he already said you've got to take on yourselves, Tikablu Alechem, you've got to take it on yourselves in the form of a Kabbalah. As a Kabbalah, something that you already know about. It's not really shy to say that you're taking it on yourself, but they're a Kabbalah. Anyway, that maybe Rashi sort of hinted to us that they already said nicer in a certain bracket, which led also to Nishma, like the Rashbam says, B'derech Apshat Aki Posher. And therefore Rashi didn't feel it was necessary to go into great detail about that. And maybe we could say that the whole greatness of Naisa, and then afterwards Nishma, or that was mitzad what we call the Chelik Hadrush B'Torah, more like the understanding Kitzat B'derech Haruchnias V'Hadrush, and even L'mayla Miseh, even from Remez V'Seid, the whole Indian of the greatness of Naisa V'Nishma, the way it's taken. The Hainu is referring to the whole Torah, what they didn't know yet what was going to be. And they were bottled completely and utterly to the Eibushter V'Chulu. We'll talk maybe about that a little bit more as we go along. Absolutely. Or those Inyonim were more shy to Chelik Hadrush. And therefore the Gemara in the Sector Shabbos, it mentions the whole Indian of Naisa V'Nishma, with a story about all the angels that came down, and they waited for the Eden, and they heard them say, Naisa V'Nishma, and then all the angels came down and gave them 2 crowns, Echad Keneged Naisa, Echad Keneged Nishma, and they said this, and they said that, the whole amazing story. Well, that's not really Shat Lachelech Hapshat Shabbatorah. I mean, that's really an amazing Indian, but the Drush Yoter, all the Malachim came down, and they all waited for the Eden, and when they heard them say Naisa V'Nishma, then, as they say, such all sorts of amazing things began to happen. That's all in Yonim, but Derech Lamayla Kitzat Mi Derech Hapshat, even Aposhu V'Yoysa. Anyway, suffice it to say, if we do go a little bit Lamayla Mi Hapshat, when we go into this whole Inyan, then we find here that the Inyan of Naisa V'Nishma is an amazing principle. And in Pashtus, it's not so much the Naisa and the Nishma as 2 entities. And therefore, that's the famous kasha that Chassidus asked. In that Gemara, the greatness was that they put Naisa before Nishma. So there should have been a 3rd crown, because they got a crown for Naisa, and then they got a crown for Nishma. What Naisa means, deed. Nishma means, as I said before, to understand, to appreciate, even learning. Understanding, so Maisa is unbelievably great, understanding, learning is unbelievably great. Is that what about putting the Naisa before the Nishma? So it's well known, the beer in Siddur also, the Rebbe Melech Mashiach got a whole beer. But when I get to that's so high that you can't even get a crown for that. I mean, that's so unbelievably high that's the yesod of everything, that you put the Naisa before the Nishma. Well, that means you become absolutely botil to Atzma Saint Seif Mamish, and you give away your whole self absolutely only to Maisa B'Poyo. But that asks itself a shaila, what's so great about Maisa B'Poyo? Ma Godel being Maisa, the Dafki, the giving yourself away, the Atzmas involves you letting yourself into Maisa. So we'll see about that maybe briefly as we go along. However, suffice it to say that the putting of the Naisa before the Nishma, well, that is the great, unbelievable kvetch. And then Naisa's got its own crown, and Nishma's got its own crown. Because there can be a crown in doing, you can do things properly and with devotion, and with all the inyanim that it involves to do, because to really do things in Maisa completely and properly is also a big man on a person. And then there's the union of Nishma, understanding, and the devotion to learning and being into learning with all its details. Well, that's also a crown. But then there's a hidden crown, according to the Rebbe, and to Chassidus in general, there's a hidden crown that's so great that it couldn't even be mentioned by those angels. It was beyond their ability to have any kesher with it, because they're only angels, in inverted commas, they're only angels, and the neshamas are incomparably higher. So therefore, Naisa Kodim Lishma was something that even the Malachim couldn't give out a prize for that. It's too high for them. Anyway, what's so amazingly high about it? What is so tremendous in this whole inyan of Naisa and Nishma, and particularly the Naisa Kodim Nishma? So in order to deal with that briefly, and due to the fact that I wasn't so well the last couple of days, we're just going to deal briefly with the Inyonim. Say the Birchas Hamazon. We're not going to bench, but we're going to look we're going to look in the Siddur at a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. which hopefully will help us understand this whole inyan. And it's in Perek Shlishi, Perek Shlishi, Mishnah Tes. Is in my siddur. It's on the on page Kuf Yud, on page opposite 218, right at the top of the page. Yeah, at the end of the line, Mishnah Tes. Everybody got it? Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa. What you've all heard of Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa. It's put down in the Gemara that Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa was a very, very amazingly, how do you call it, schooler type man. He was Takia schooler, he was, the Gemara says about him that he was Mulumad ben Nisim. He was very used and very accustomed to making Nisim, or have Nisim happen in his life. But you know some of the stories, no doubt, brought down in the Gemara about Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa. So anyway, he says, Koil sheyiras chetoi koidemes lechokmosei. Anybody who his fear of sin is prior to his chokhmah, chokhmosei miskayemet, then his chokhmah will hold out, and it'll last, it'll preserve itself. And maybe not only just preserve itself, but it'll be strong and maybe even grow. Of somebody that his chokhmah is prior to his fear of sin, then his chokhmah won't last, won't hold out. Number one, hu hoyo oimer. Now this is not just oimer, but hu hoyo oimer. That's well known. That when that occurs in the Gemara, when somebody used to say, and that means that he was accustomed to say it. You know, he didn't just say it once, but it was like one of his, how do you call it, recurring mottos, you know, one of his recurring themes. He said, "V'hu hoya oimer, koil shemasov merubin michokmosei." Whoever whose deeds are more multiple than his wisdom, then chokmosei miskem, then his wisdom preserves itself. Of whoever his wisdom is more than his deeds, then his chokmah won't preserve itself, it won't hold out. And then he comes on to say another amazing inyan. Maybe if we were really in the mood, we could show a kesher between that and what we just said, but we can't go into too much. Then he goes on to say, anybody that the peoples, that he called the Briyas, really feel good with this guy, he makes a good impression on people, that's a sign that he makes a good impression on the Eibishter. Well, that's a whole beginning. We're saying Kanamochim to go into that at the moment. So, I mean, that's an amazing thing. We find all sorts of inyanim which might almost be contradictory to these two principles which Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa brings down. Because we know that there's a cloud that even if you learn Shaloi Lishma, eventually, if you learn Shaloi Lishma, then eventually you'll come to learn Lishma. So you might say, well, that's in the inyan for learning, but not so much inyan for Maisa. And we know the famous statement of the Gemara in Masechta Kedushin, where the Gemara says that Godel Talmud Shemei V'lidei Maisa. The Talmud is greater, learning is greater. However, why is it greater? Because it brings you to Maas. And it's one of the famous diuk of the Alter Rebbe was there in Likutei Torah and other places. The Alter Rebbe said, from that we understand that really Maisa is greater. Because the Gemara said the reason why learning is greater because it brings you to Maas. And it's well known, the famous biur was there, not because when you learn you know what you got to do. If you don't learn, you don't know what you got to do. But as well known, the famous biur is that just the etzem, if you learn in a way that you should be and you learn Talmud and you learn Torah with Yiras Shamayim, what we see here, Yiras Chet, then that automatically brings you to Maisa. The union of the Torah is so great that brings you to the ultimate Tachlis, which is Maisa. Not that if you know what to do, then there's hope that you'll do it. No, that if you learn, you will actually do it. We see from that Talmud is great, but ultimately, the question answers itself, because from the fact that it says that the whole greatness of learning is only to bring it to Maisa, now we see that really Maisa is greater. So we need to understand what is so great about Yiras Chet, that you've got to have that, otherwise your Chokhmah is not going to be good, and what's so great about Maisa, that if you don't have Maisa, then you don't have Chokhmah. In other words, your Chokhmah doesn't hold out. So it comes along the Bar Tanura, the very famous I forgot to bring down my mission. It's got the Bar Tanura in it. Anyway, it comes along the Bar Tanura, and he says that what it means is that in your machshava, when you learn, it depends what are you looking for by learning. And he said, if you say to yourself, I want to be a Yirei Chet, and that's why I learn Torah. I'm learning Torah in order Torah should show me how to guard myself from anything which could be called Chet, Chas v'Sholem. And why do I want to do that? Because Chet is negative the Eivishter. And therefore I'm only learning Torah because I want to guard my whole kesher with the Eivishter. I don't want to ever do anything that would break me off or separate me from the Eivishter. And therefore I'm learning Torah. And remember, says the Bar Tanura, it depends what is your original kavana when you start off learning Torah. Therefore he says that that's al derech she'omrun. He doesn't say who said it. And he says that kol tchilosei machshavtei hu ba b'sof ma'isa. Mashu kazeh. That's what we say in L'chot Deidi every Shabbos night. Seif ma'isa b'machshavtei techila. In other words, that Bar Tanura says a very fascinating cloud. He says that what comes out in your ultimate deed, or that was what was in your original machshava. In other words, what you really wanted in your original intention in starting something, or that we see in the Maisa that you do b'poyo. That's interesting. The Bar Tanura was quite a long time before the repute of L'chot Deidi. Yes, so where did he get that expression? Say Maisa. Techila, then something similar to that is Marumas even in the Sefer Yetzirah. That's a very famous Kabbalah work from very early on. Anyway, the Bar Tanura makes a very fascinating idea that you can tell from what occurs, but what was in the original mind of a person. And he says, however, if somebody he just wants to learn, but he doesn't want to have in his first thing, the whole thing is to fear Chet and to fear doing an Avera in order to stay connected with the Eibishter. He said what happens to him is that later on he begins to learn, and then he sees that the learning gets in the way of his taivas and in the way of his material. The learning starts telling him too much, how do you call it, frank indications, doesn't it, Yossi Stone? It tells him so many indications that if you want to learn Torah, and what does Torah really say? It says you can't be just a big Magushim and a Baal Taivim and the whole Arichas. So he said, what do I need all this for? Let's have a better life, let's have a nice, Batish life. And so he maybe leaves a bit of the learning and he prefers to have a Baal Batish life. But this is up to Bar Tanura. And he said, therefore, if you don't have Yiras Chetei, Koidemis L'chok Motzei, then he said, it's not going to, your Chokhmah won't actually hold out. It'll sort of get pushed out of the way by other inyan. That's quite an amazing statement. I mean, that's almost like a piece of Chassidah on the part of the Bar Tanura, as we'll see. Maybe we can, I don't know if we're going to have time for all these inyan, but maybe, but the Kitzur we can maybe touch it as we go along. However, comes along the Maralmi Prague, and the Maralmi Prague says, why do you have to have Yiras Chet, a fear of Chet, which is like Yiras Shamayim in the real sense? Why do you have to have that? Koidem L'Chokhmah. L'Chokhmah is the thing that, either you've got a good mind and you can understand, or you don't. Either you get into Chokhmah or you don't get into it. Why should it be dependent in Yiras Chet? So he says an amazing thing, mamish like a piece of chassidus. He says that there's like in this is like ilava olol. You've all heard of the expression ilava olol? No, you haven't. You mean tell me once and you haven't heard what ilava olol is? Are you serious? Anyway, ilava olol means how do you call it? Derivative, source point and derivative. Doesn't mean cause and effect. No, it doesn't mean cause and effect. It means source point and derivative. In other words, that if you have a certain Indian and that functions, then it will give rise to another Indian. That's called ilimita. Ila is the source point, and alu is that what comes out of it. So he says that the whole Indian from Torah is Chochmas Hashem. Torah is not the stam Chochma. Chochma is Chochma, but it's Chochma of the Eibishter. But he said, for you to get the Olo, which is the understanding of the wisdom, you've got to have the Ilah, you've got to have the source point. And he said, what is that connection with the Eibishter? He said, if you're not connected to Hashem, then you don't have the Olul, which is the ability to understand Torah. Mashma, that without really being connected to Hashem, you can't really ultimately have Chokhmah. The Chokhmah will just fade away because it's not connected to its Ilah. And every Olul has to be linked up to its Ilah. As it brought down Barichas Gedolah Vatzuma in Chassidus Chabad, Barichas Gedolah. That's one on the Maharal in Prague. He was like a mamutza between Drush and Chassidus Chabad, or more than Drush, the Ilma Apshat, and moving into towards Chassidus Chabad. But he was the Alter Zayda of the Alter Rebbe, the Maharal in Prague. 7 generations, according to most Girsois, from the Maharal in Prague to the Alter Rebbe. Direct generations, one after the idea. Well, if he said, come to us, that if you're linked to your emissary's source point, then the Chokhmah follows and develops because it's a Olo from a Ilah. And if you don't have that connection with the emissary Ilah, who is Hashem, he's really the emissary Ilah in this particular Indian, then you can't have the Olo, your Chokhmah will just fade away. It'll bloom from it, but it won't have any kiyum. And then he brings an amazing thing with this mamish a bullseye also from the Alter Rebbe. We'll see how the great Zayda brought something down, which is later developed by his great grandson in a most amazing way. And then the Maharal brings a Gemara. I didn't bring down the Gemara because we start quoting too much, we sort of run out of time. But al Chaponim, there's a Gemara in Masechta Shabbos in Perek Bamer Madlikin. But that's the second Perek. But the Gemara brings over there a pasuk which indicates to us the Shisha Sedrei Mishnah, the 6 orders of the Mishnah. It brings verses from words in this particular pasuk, each of which indicate a certain name which can be taken as referring to one of the Zroim and then Moyed and then Noshim and Nezikin, the whole thing of the Shisha Sedrei Mishnah. And then it tells that when a mensch comes up Lamaila, when he comes up after 120 years in front of the Bezdin, and they take him into the Bezdin and they ask him a few shayla, the first things that they ask. There's about 5 or 6 things written that they ask you. And the first thing they ask you is, did you do business uprightly? Nosata be'amuna. Did you do your money business with people in faith? Faith means that you didn't take more of what was due to you, and so on and so forth. But you did upright business dealings. And then the next one asks, were you kovea itim le Torah? Did you fix times to learn Torah? And then the next one is, were you oisin papiria verivia? Did you have children? Did you have a family? Did you bring children into the world? And so on and so forth. So it's mashma for Rashi over there that those 6 questions that they ask you right first off when you come up into the bed, Shomaila, that they are Keneged the Shisha Setri Mishnah. And that's like the Shisha main points of the Torah those are the 6 questions that you get asked. Everybody gets asked those 6 questions before you go into the other detail. In other words, the first thing you're asked is, were you genuine? And so Rashi points out that that's got to do with the union of Zorim, because when you have crops, you got to give maisras. And nobody knows what you do with that. That's your business. You know whether you gave your maestras, if you did properly, or if you didn't. You know whether you handled rightly with the Eibushter, or whether you didn't. So if you do that right, then your business dealings will also be right. So if your business dealings are not right, then who knows what you're doing over there with the Eibushter, with giving maestras, with all the riches and worrying. Anyway, it's a whole big pill was a kind of mocking lahari, was those 6 questions what you asked. So then the Gemara says an amazing thing. And the Gemara says all that is wonderful, all that is tremendous, but the Gemara says that the Ike is Yirah Shamayim. I said the Gemara, the Ike is, as it's written, Yiras Hashem Hi Eitzorei. That the fear of the Eibushter, that's the man's, silo where he stores away everything. So Rashi says over there, the Ike, what you keep is what you store away, you don't let anybody get it, and that's the Ike should be Ikerim. That's the main thing. And what is that? Yerushalayim. And that was a very amazing thing. That has all these amazing questions and all these things you're going to have to face. He said that the first and main thing behind it all is Yiras Hashem, fear of the Eibushter. So then the Gemara brings a marshal, brings the most amazing marshal. And it says that there was a marshal, there was a guy that he had a field, and the field produced him a kur. Now a kur is a big weight of what a certain amount of normal growing of a field will produce. It's a lot. It's a lot of tavua, of wheat, crops. So he took in this whole kur, and he said to his helper, or to his servant, he said to him, Ta'aleh li ela tikra, how do you call it, to the aliyah, to the aliyah. What's an aliyah? Like a big storehouse at the top of the house. He said, take it all up and put it up there. So the guy sweats away and he takes it all up there and puts it up there. Then the Baal Boss meets him and he said, by the way, he said, Rav tu kav chutmin. Did you mix into it, before you put it up there, this thing, a little kav? A kav is a small measurement. We had Rashi put it down in reference to the man over there. There's a oimer and there's there's something else. And without going into all the details of the measurement, that's a long discussion in its own right. However, he asked that you put in a little bit of this thing called chutmin. And nobody knows exactly what is this chutmin. What is it? So Rashi says that chutmin is what's called Eretz Malecho, a piece of salty earth. A piece of salty earth. He said, did you mix in that salty, a kav of the salty earth with the whole kur that you put up in the thing? He said, oi, I forgot all about it. So the Baal Boss said to him, he said, better you wouldn't have put it up there, B'klau. He said, because it's all kind of rot. He said, it's well known, if you just put up tvua inside a storehouse, it'll just rot. But if you put a kav chutmin inside it, then it won't rot. It preserves forever. Now, where have you heard that before? You've all heard it before. Where did you hear it? Huh? Yosef? Yeah, by Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik, he stored all this tavua in Mitzrayim enough for 7 years. And Pari he was storing myself. Pari got the mitzvah, they also stored away. But in the first year already, when they wanted to get it and open it up, they saw it was all bad, and most of what they had stored away was all bad. So when they came to Pari said, I can't do anything for you, have to go to Yosef. Right? And so he said, K'moishehu goza, like Yosef was gozer on our tavua, that it should rot. Yeah, and maybe if we're not careful, we'll be gozer on us, we should all die or something. You have to go to him. But Rashi brings out, the Gemara brings that what was Yosef's secret? How did he stored away so much wheat and it didn't rot? That he mixed in with it a little bit of the ground of Mitzrayim, wherever it was, he mixed in a little bit of the ground, and therefore it never went rotten. of the Mitzrim didn't know that trick, and therefore what they stored in these big places, it went rotten. So the Gemara says that he mixed in a kav. They mixed in a kav chutmin, it would have been good. He didn't. The Balabas says, oh, it's going to rot. But if you put so, Rashi says, what is this chutmin? What is it? So Rashi says that it's a salty piece of ground, a salty piece of earth. But why does he say salty? That's the interesting part of it. So it comes along the Alter Rebbe in the Kutitera, in the famous Maimer of the Alter Rebbe in Pasha Vayikro. He writes about why you should learn Pnimis HaTorah. And the Alter Rebbe goes there with a whole big arichis that the Ikeh of Torah is Nigla. And he goes, you have to learn Nigla, and everything is Nigla. A whole 2 or 3 big pages where he proves that the Ikeh limit HaTorah and the Ikeh in the Zman HaGolos and the Ikeh of everything and the Ikeh of Halacha Ma'aseh, everything is Nigla the Torah. And all of a sudden he gets onto the fact, however, he said, if you don't, and then he gets onto this idea of salt, melon. And he said, why did all the korbanos have to have salt? Because salt is the most amazing thing. And he's married the Alter Rebbe that salt has 2 things. On the one hand, it puts taste into things. If you don't put salt in most cooked foods, then they don't have a good taste, or even the taste they're really meant to have when they're cooked. And he said the second thing is that salt preserves things. If you want to preserve meat or something like that for a long time, you mix it in salt and it preserves. So the Alter Rebbe goes over the whole Rich. He said, even though I said that the Ikeh, the Torah is Nikla, that's what you gotta, know, you gotta do. He said, but it's gotta have salt. That's that salt in it. He said, otherwise, it's likely to sort of, how do you call it? It's likely to sort of turn a little bit bad and turn a little bit sour. How do I know that? And he brings this whole Gemara, after putting up, and he says, what is that kav chutmin? What is that? A small amount of this eretz malecho. And over there he tells us that the whole Indian of Pnimis that there is melach based on that pasuk. And he brings us another thing by the Kohanim, it's written bris melach, that the Kohuna is called a bris melach. And so the Rebbe said the whole from the Kohanim is also an Indian for preserving and bringing kapara and all sorts of inyanim. And therefore he says that the word melach is also oishis mochal. It brings them as a kapara, and as a forgiveness of our sin. It's just so much that I can't really go into it all. And that's why we dip our bread in melach, because melach is also b'gematria 3 times the Shem Havayah. But the whole amazing arich is the same kind of mofim. Or what he says is that if you don't have this little bit of kav chutmin inside of all your chitin, what chitin is what? Chitin is Torah, as the one known. Chitin. Chito is gematria kof beis, or there's a kof beis eish is ha-Torah. If you don't have that, then your Torah is like, how to call it? Go funny. And he said, what does that matter? He said, Daddy, you're learning a pnimis ha-Torah, what we call it nowadays, chassidah. He said, you have to learn pnimis ha-Torah, or that preserves and it put taste into all of your learning. And if not, cholila, it could go, how do you call it, sour. It could go not in the way it's really meant to be. I say that's what comes out of the whole riches over there. Amamila, Kutz again, the Maral Miprag, like we said earlier, he connects this whole idea with that Gemara. And we see that what does he mean by this Indian from Yiras Chait? The Alter Rebbe teaches out that Yiras Chait, or that fearing sin, or that wanting to be makusha to the Eibishter, or that's the idea of fearing sin, isn't it? That's the idea of fearing sin, or that Indian of Yiras Chait, that's Chassidut. This is Pnimis Torah. So you know the famous story that happened to the Alter Rebbe. He got himself into difficulties with the Mit. You don't know the story. Guys don't know these stories. What happened from when they let the Alter Rebbe out of prison, they took him to the house of Mishnagi. Do you know the story? By mistake. They took him to the right building, but it was in the wrong apartment. And the guy who lived downstairs was a fiery Mishnagi, and the Alter Rebbe is a fiery chassid. He lived on the top of the building. And they made a mistake, and they took him into the Mishnah, and the Alter Rebbe was there for quite a few hours, so they woke up. The prison said, we let him out already. The Chassidim said, where is he? They didn't know No, we took him to the building. Where is he? But he's not in the building. And all of a sudden, they realized that maybe there'd been a mistake. And they find out what Stutz had done by the mistake. Sure enough, they found the Alter Rebbe. Then, you know the whole story that he really tried to make the Alter Rebbe feel bad, and he did. And the Alter Rebbe said that he suffered very heavily from that, etc., etc. But the Mishnagdim offered him a glass of tea, and the Alter Rebbe drank the glass of tea out of COVID for what's called COVID Aksanya. They covered your host and so on. So anyway, before he left that Mishnagid, the Alter Rebbe promised him that he would visit 3 of the Gionim and the Mishnagdim at that time that were held to be the big leaders in the Gionas, in the Torah, and he would visit them, and he would be mitvaker with them, and he would prove his case. You follow? So the Alter Rebbe undertook to do that with this Mishnagid, and so later the Alter Rebbe felt that he had to do that since he promised that Kol Asher V'Shteitot Kol Asher Yitzim Mipicho Ta'aseh. Whenever the Alter Rebbe felt that he was obliged to carry out this undertaking that he'd made to this Mishnagid, and he went to visit one of the big. He visited 3 of his whole stories about the visits that he made to these great Mishnagdim. Whole ganze beer. Oh, anyway, the Alter Rebbe went to one of them, and he said to him, "Listen, he wasted all his time learning Chassidus. It's just a waste of time. You should be learning only Nigla the Torah. Who needs all this Chassidus business." So the Alter Rebbe brought him down this Gemara, and he said that Kav Chutmin. He said that's the inin of learning Chassidus, and that's the Melech, and what Rashi said, and it's Malecho, and the whole thing. So this guy was had occurred that he was really on the ball. So he says to the Alter Rebbe, "Oh, yours." He said, "But it's written over there that in one kura you put a kav." So a kura is a huge amount. A kav is about, I think it works out something like 180th part of a kur. Is a kav. So legabi a kur. So he says, that's a little weeny fraction. So he said, in Kumtas you should be learning about 1 minute a day maximum, or even a half a minute a day. That's all you guys should be doing. Is if you just open the safe and then close it again. It's a kav, legabi a kur. And he said, I hear that you guys sit for hours on this stuff, and you talk about it, barabim, more than what you do the nigla. And everybody said, how does that fit with if you bring me that Gemara, then pink forget. He said, that Gemara is a kasha completely against you. So the Alter Rebbe said, with great apologies, he said, but you didn't look in the Gemara. And it's true, if you look in the Gemara, it's written, he didn't ask him, did you put in it a kav chutmin? He said, iravto b'zeh kav chutmin. Did you mix in? In other words, you had to mix it in the whole thing. So the Alter Rebbe said to him in Yiddish, the Alter Rebbe said, iravtim li. So the Alter Rebbe said, why do you need to say li? Why do you put the word in li? I mean, he obviously means for him. He should have said eraftim. Did you mix into it? What do you say eraftim li? No, li is a remes on the Emerson Balabos. That's a remes to the Eivishter. And they were saying, did you mix in for me? So he said, Mela, to put it, you're right. That's only a few minutes, like I mean, the whole kur. He said, the Alter Rebbe said, Oba Arain mission. That's what the Alter Rebbe said to him in Yiddish. He said, Oba Arain mission. He said, das nimmt a fuller Zeit. But to mix in, that little bit that goes, it should be mixed in your whole being, and it should be mixed in all your Torah and all your actions. He said, that takes a long time. You have to learn a lot of it. You should get this mix in. Just a little bit should really mix in. He said, das nimmt Zeit. So when this Mishnah Rov heard that, he didn't know what to answer. So I said, the Alter Rebbe gesagt, whenever we see iravtim b'zeh kav chutmin. In other words, that the limud atzidus is maybe lidei yiras chait. That is the inner for yiras chait. You got to mix that into all of your Torah. If you mix it all in, even though only a small amount, but it takes time to mix it in. Then it makes your whole Torah the way it really should be. The whole oitzar that you filled up the whole silo. That's got a possibility of holding out. I say bring the Maram with Gemara. I'm just adding what the Alter Rebbe has to say about about that Gemara based on what the Maharal Miprag says about it. And when we come to Islam, he said that learning Chassidus, that is the union of Yiras Chet. That's what brings to the whole preservation of all of your Torah. And therefore he said, it's got to be koider. And therefore the Alter Rebbe says you have to learn since the beginning of the day. Before you start learning, it has to be the union from Yiras Chet. And now I saw a most amazing thing. The Rebbe, Melech HaMashiach, has got these biurim on Pirkei Avos. So in the biurim of Pirkei Avos, the Rebbe, Melech HaMashiach, says an amazing thing. He said, what is Yiras Chet that's got to koidim l'chak mosei? He said, Avodas HaTfilah. The Rebbe says an amazing thing. He said that means davening. Because what is Avodas HaTfilah? Avodas HaTfilah is the application of your learning of Torah. So it's no good either to say, oh yes, I learned Chassidus before the day, early in the day I learned a bit of Chassidus, and you should you just daven any old house, you do this. Nah, the Rebbe said you have to learn Chassidus, and then it's got to express itself in Avodas HaTfilah, davki in the union from davening according to the Chassidus that you learn. Oh, with that davening, then you can go into your learning, and that's a diuk koidemus le chokmosei. Over, and that's the union from how they come like the Bartanura says, seif ma'isa b'machshavata techilo. In other words, the davki alidei the seif ma'isa, or then we see where were you really holding davki later on. Somebody who davened with a bit of pnimis, and you can see it in his eye. His actions are different. His whole way of doing things is different. It's full of an awareness of what he came during his Avodas HaTfilah, and in his learning of Chassidus, even before his Avodas HaTfilah. And that's Yiras Chet Kodemus L'Chokmosei. It's an amazing union. When I saw that piece from the Rebbe, my eyes jumped out on Stokes, because the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah he talks about the union of Chassidus, the limud of Chassidus, that's what preserved. And the Rebbe said, yeah, but it's got to affect itself in Avodah B'Puyel, and when it comes out into davening B'Puyel, the way it should be, then there's hope that it will make all your Torah also the way it should be. I mean, it's a pity place for Nazar. Kein yesh lema that that's a kavana of the Maharal Miprag. Kamuvan, developed by his great Einikel, the Alter Rebbe, and his great Einikel, the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach. They're all descended from the same. The Rebbe took a direct Einikel from the Tzemach Tzedek. He's from the Hedikot. The apple doesn't go very far from the tree. Edify. That's the end. How it comes again, the Maharal Miprag, he said, what's the next Indian? Yeah, that kosher mass of merubin mi chokmosei, then chokmosei miskayemes. You know, what's this new Indian of mass? Was it this all of a sudden that you've got to have more maisim? And here he doesn't say your maisim should be before your learning. He said your maisim have to be more than your learning. I mean, what is it doing? What does it mean? Yeah, maisim more than your learning. I mean, if you don't know, you can't really do. I mean, what is shaykh that your maisim should be merubin mi chokmosei? So comes again the Maharal Miprag over there, and he says an amazing thing. He said, this is another. He said, in order for the Torah really to affect you, and for you to affect all the union that you do, all the things in Avodas Hashem, even Avodas HaTfilah, like we just said, all the unionim, he said, you got to have Maisa. But in order for that to be Maisa, your nefesh has got to actually be cleaned out from all the murk and stuff that you put on it. Why? Because he said, if not, then all these wonderful good effects that are supposed to occur haven't really got where to occur. They fall onto a resistant material. But that's you and your nefesh habahamiya. So says the Maharal Miprag, an amazing thing. He says that when you do something in Maisa, and you actually do Maisa, then that purifies your nefesh. Now, that's put down, mamish, as a principle. It could be in the time of the Maharal Prague, the Sefer Chinuch, as we have it, may not have appeared then, because the Sefer Chinuch was only something that was found in latter generations, Ad Kamashani Yodeh, and it was, we don't really know who the author of the Sefer Chinuch is. He was a great Christian, and it appears that his name was Aaron, but more now we don't really know exactly who he was and exactly where, what. We just have the Sefer HaChinuch, which is this amazing beer on all the 613 commandments. So come again, the Sefer HaChinuch in the Indian Pesach, not that far away, and he says that it's written, you're not allowed to break a bone in the Korban Pesach. If you break a bone in the Korban Pesach, then you have a negative command. If you break a bone in the Korban Pesach, they state in the Torah, it's one of the mitzvahs. It's one of the mitzvahs leisas. So it's just the Sefer Chinuch. What does it matter if you break a bone in the Korban Pesach or you don't? I mean, the main thing you're supposed to eat the Korban, but you already roasted it. So I tell you, broke a bone. Ma, was it a big? Ma, Indian bazaar. He said, what could be said? So he says, we don't really know. He said, all we know is that the Eibishter wanted in everything we did to give us a lot of meiser. And he brings the famous thing that you hear from the people who should never be any more from the mourners, that they say Kaddish, never should be anything like that anymore, and all Yidden should go into Chaim Nitzki and take him miyad. Now, they bring the Rabbi Hanania ben Akashia, they say the famous little Mishnah of Rabbi Hanania ben Akashia at the end of Masechta Machis, Lotzach HaKodesh Baruch Hu, Lotzach, it says Yisrael, the Eibishter wanted to help Yidden and to give them schus, Hilchach, Hiru B'Lehem Torah, mitzvahs, he gave them many Torah and mitzvahs. Shenema, Hashem Kovit, Laman, Tzidka, Yaldil Torah V'Ya'ah, Dir, and then he says Kaddish to Rabban. After he mentions a couple of words of Tanya, then he says Kaddish to Rabban. So Sefer Chinuch says, why did the Eibishter Hiru B'Lehem Torah? He made him a lot of Torah and a lot of mitzvahs. Leave you, give him an easy task. What was the mile of giving him such a lot? Hiru B'Lehem Torah mitzvahs. Oh, thank you, Eibishter. Isn't this amazing? You gave us such a lot to do. Everybody's so happy about it. We're praising the Eibishter. He gave us this unbelievable list of things to do. 613 of them, plus all the young with the Rabbanan and Chaysh B'Tuah. What is it? So the Sefer Chinuch says that he wanted that every little thing you did in your life, every turn, everywhere you move, should be a mitzvah. And it should require you to do something. And he said it's not like people say, the first of all you got to purify your mind, and then you purify your actions by having a pure mind. He said, Pik Fakir. He said, if you do actions, good actions, then that purifies the mind and the soul. As he stated in the Sefer Chinuch. It's a psychological principle which rings down through the ages. But the Sefer Chinuch says, if you want a person to be good, you've got to give him good things to do. Don't work on his mind, give him good things to do, and then you'll help him a bit, then his mind will automatically be good. But if you try working on his mind and making him first of all find that, and then you bring him to something, who knows when you're going to get there. He says the Ika is you got to give him good things to do. That's an amazing principle. And he says Motzino, and he even goes further. And he said we found in certain cases where Shekhavim mentioned and peoples what they didn't know what to do with these guys, and they gave them good things to do. They just gave them a lot of good things to do. But he said we see that these people changed and they became good people. What sort of good things? Things are Torah. If you give a person to do good things, then he becomes a better person. His soul and his mind and everything changes. Really plays from the mind. And therefore, you know the famous story. You guys are familiar with all these famous stories. You're familiar with the famous story what happened with the great Rosh Yeshiva that he grew out of Lubavitch. That he came and he was a very wild young Bacher when he first came to Lubavitch. You know the story, right? So this fellow, he applied to get into Lubavitch. When the Rebbe first found it, so the Frierdiker Rebbe, he was like the Menahel, he had to get through him first in order to get into Mr. Weisinger having an interview with the Frierdiker Rebbe. It his eyes were just unbelievable. They say even when he was young, his eyes just eat you up, completely. So this the Bacher comes in and he has this interview with the Friedrich Rebbe. The Friedrich looks him up and down and he gets a good look at him. And Friedrich Rebbe felt he wasn't for Tom Feitmim. He was too, he was too, how do you call it, gas ruach. He was too sort of gob, not nice. So he paskined that wouldn't receive him. So a couple of hours later, Friedrich Rebbe went into the Rebbe Rashab, and they had to me. The Rebbe Rashab used to follow everything that went on in the yeshiva. So I said, what happened today? So the Friedrich Rebbe said, there came a bacher, and I refused him. I didn't receive him. So the Rebbe Rashab said, yeah. He said, who is that? So he mentioned his name to the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe Rashab said, on what basis did you not receive him? He said, he wasn't for our ruach, he didn't fit the style that we need for Tom Feitmim. So the Rebbe Rashab said, a shame to send him away. He said, you know what, it's getting close to Pesach. He said, give him to work on the matzahs. He said, put him to work on the matzahs. Don't take him into the yeshiva now. He said, put him to work on the matzahs. Because there used to be a whole thing that the Bochum used to work with. They used to bake a lot of matzahs for the Rebbe and for the whole community. The Bochum, with all the Yerushalayim and everything, they were into baking matzahs. So the Rebbe said, put him to work on the matzahs, or put him to work. He said, make sure that he works hard. He does all, gets involved in all the baking them out. But it's a pretty strenuous task. Baking big. So Friedrich said, okay. His father tells him he's going to disagree. So they put this guy to work on the matzahs. So a couple of weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks, or maybe a little bit less, went past. And then one day, the Friedrich Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab are sitting in the Rebbe Rashab's room, looking out into the chotzer, because the yeshiva and everything was all around where Rebbe lived. All of a sudden, they see this fellow walking past. He was in a hurry because he was busy with the matzahs. So the Rebbe Rashab took a look at him, and then he turned to the Friedrich Rebbe, and he said, no. He said, take a look at his face now. And so the Friedrich Rebbe took a quick look and said, So Rebbe Rashab said to him, what do you say? He said, I must say that his face looks better. He said, I must say his face looks better. He looks different. Rebbe Rashab said, he said, wait noch a bissl. He said, Yiddish, let's wait on a little bit. And he said, and then we'll see, you'll see he'll look completely different. He said, bissl Pesach. He said, he's going to look completely different. Kein Hoyer. So I had to Friedrich Rebbe asked the Rebbe Rashab, what's your patent, what's the trick, how did you know? So the Rebbe Rashab said that if you put him to work on Maisa Papuyo, Maisa Toyev, there's nothing bigger than preparing matzahs for Pesach. That's the Iker, Inyan and Kedusha, to work for matzahs for Pesach with all the things that matzahs represent. He said if he works hard at that, he's involved in Maisa Papuyo, that'll change him in Ruchnias. And you'll see, and he grew up to be a big Rosh Yeshiva. And the Friedrich Rebbe said, the Rebbe, Melech HaMashiach, said that he passed away in Paris, just after all the Chassidim got out of Russia. He was in Paris. His name was Avram Eliyahu Plotkin. That was his name. And the Rebbe said, why didn't they print his Chidushei Torah? He wrote all sorts of things on the Gemara and other things. So they printed up and say, you can get this. It's difficult to get nowadays, but you can get it. Chidushim in Shas, which were written by this person. And he became a big Rosh Yeshiva, and he gave shurim, even in Tom Feitmim. And then later to all the Chassidim that he used to give shurim, and he didn't have any panos, and the Chassidim used to help him. They used to look after him because they knew he was such a Amos, Goren, and Amos of Loim Torah, Lishma, that they wanted to help him. I know of a Chassid, I know of somebody in Australia, that he was able to help him a little bit in panos. He used to give him from his money that he made to this great Rosh Yeshiva, that the Chassidim held him out, that he should be able to learn Torah in those difficult times, who had the ability to learn Torah the whole time. So that was his, so we see that he was Mekayim that Inyan, that the Maharal Miprag says, that if you do Maisim Bapuyo, Maisim Halayah, Pitor, that purifies your nefesh. Amamela, Alidei say, your nefesh becomes a place where all the learning Torah can settle and come in and affect you. There won't be anything in the way, and your whole being will become are being al pi Torah, and therefore your chokhmah will, it will be mishkai kayemer. So they state in the Maral Miprag bim furis. Kacha kosu v'evim mafuri. So it comes along. There's a very famous brisa. A very famous brisa on the Pirkei Avos, which is called the Avos to Reb Nosson. But the Avos to Reb Nosson, what that's how they call it, a big brisa, a series of detailed brises on the Mishnayos at the Pirkei Avos. And over there in the 22nd chapter, it's got about 40 chapters. Pirkei Avos only got 5 or 6. It's, over there in the 22nd chapter, comes along the brisa of the Avos to Reb Nosson, and it says that Kol Misha Yir Shchet HaKodim Chakmosei, and he brings a poshik, Reishis Chokma Yiras Hashem. At the beginning of all Chokma is the Yiras Hashem, what we just spoke about. Hu hayo oimer kol shemars merub mechokmosei, chokmosei miskayema, shenema naisa v'nishma. Shenema naisa v'nishma. That's not written in the Pirkei Avos. But in the brisa from Reb Nosson, he brings their posse, he brings the same statement. He says shenema naisa v'nishma. In other words, he learns that the whole expression in Perashah Baal Peh from the principle of Naisa v'nishma is Kol Mishamas of Merubim Mechok Chokmosei and Chokmosei Miskayem Shenema Naisa v'nishma. So like we saw the Maral Miprag, we quoted him Bariches. Now here at Talmud, the Maral Miprag at a Talmud, who is called the Tosefes Yom Tov. The Tosefes Yom Tov, he's one of the great Mefoshim on the Mishnayos. He was a direct Talmud. He mamish learned Torah from the Maral Miprag. He calls him Moire v'Rabbi HaMaral Zal. He refers to him quite often. So the Tosefes Yom Tov was an unbelievable Goen, and his name was Heller. And there's a Rav in Karnait, Rabbi Heller. He used to be one of the Rabbanim. I don't know if he still is. One of the Rabbanim on the West, and he's a direct descendant from the Tosefes Yom Tov. However, upon him comes again the Tosefes Yom Tov, and he says, wasn't this in you from Maiso Merubin Mechokmosei? How can you have more Maisim than your Chokmah? He said, it's not written that your Maisim has to be before your Chokmah, it's written that it has to be more than, and that's the diuk here, more than, rather than prior. By Yiras Cheder use the expression prior. Over here it's written your Maisim have to be more than your Chokmah. So the Tosefes Yom Tov said, how can your Maisim be more than your Chokhmah? I mean, something that you don't know, you never do it. But once you know that you're supposed to do it, then you do it. Yeah, but if you never heard about it, then how are you going to do it? So your Chokhmah and your Maisim, you can, like we said, the Patanus, you can have it in mind, that that's the Ikar. But how can you say your Maisim have to be more than your Chokhmah? Come check in the Hari Kolims. The Tosefes Yom Tov, and he says an amazing idea. It's an amazing idea of Derech Pshat. And he says, it brings you over to Rav Nosson, he says that he brings down the Posik Naisa v'nishma, and he said the same thing with these Yidden. What's it Naisa v'nishma if we teach it the way we teach it, the Derech HaDrush, that they took upon themselves to do everything, even before they knew, you can't take on yourself to do if you don't know what it is. I mean, you've got to first of all be told what it is in order for you to know. He said, what was the tithe? He said that Naisa koidim l'nishma. Nishma means chokhmah, and Naisa means Maisa. He said the Yidden took on themselves everything. And then he said, listen here, we don't know, and we don't even dream yet what's going to be told us, but we take on ourselves everything Hashem's going to say. Kol asher diber Hashem, na'aseh v'ni nishma. Even though diber Hashem is in the past, or whatever, however we get around that. Like we said, but Derech HaPshat is maybe a little bit different. But Kol asher diber Hashem, everything what the angel said, we're prepared to do, even though we don't know the heck what it is yet. We don't know what He's going to say, but we take on ourselves and we'll do it. So the Alter Rebbe says in Kutei Torah, and maybe Hashem might have told him, to cut wood and draw water for the rest of all the generations to come. Now, what would have happened if he'd have done that? Huh? What would you have done?
We'd be shoveling wood. Collecting wood.
Huh?
We'd be collecting wood.
He said he would have slept water for the rest of his life. What can we do? In other words, that if the Eibush is telling us to do it, then Naisa v'nishma, anything. It just so happens, the Alter Rebbe said that we have a mazel. That he told us to sit in a sukkah, for example. That's a gishmaka thing. Other very tasteful things that he told us to do. Or whatever he would have told us to do. So, the Tesis Yontov says that Kum Tesis, the Eibush of purity of Naisa koidem le-nishma. But that means that he didn't took on himself mamish everything without knowing the heck. They didn't know what. Later on, the Eibush brought along the Rabbanan. He said, "Well, listen, the Rabbanan, they got a heck of a lot of things that you got to do apart from the things midoraisa." So when they said nice, whatever you say, whatever you say, we're ready. Here we are. Yeah, we're ready to do it. So Tesis Yonah says that if you say nice koidim lanishma, but even amiti, you've already taken on yourself marubin. You've taken on yourself a huge peckle of inyanim that you yourself don't even know what it involves yet. Atawat lo yeh. And atawat lo yeh, therefore became you took on yourself. And he said that's marubin. Your maisim are much more in the Kabbalah al atzmucho mea papoyo, because you only know certain thing. Talo there, adayin et kolain. And if he says the Tesis Yonah, nice koidem lanishma is a Kabbalah, because at that particular point they didn't know either. They didn't know what was going to be. They didn't know all the things were going to be in the Torah. He said that was a Kabbalah atzmo. Therefore, the same thing. Every year there's got to say nice koidem lanishma. You've got to take on yourself, and once you do, then you're ma'asim amarubim. But it's not exactly you run around doing all those things because you can't do everything in one day. But it's in the Kabbalah. It's in the actual taking on yourself. Does it pshat ma'asim koidem ma'asim koidem lechokmosei? And that's how Rebbe it's mavur. Yes, it is. And the Rebbe Melech Mashiach's got a whole thing about it, that the greatness of Naisa Koidem Lanishma, if that's the pshat, that you just took on yourself absolutely unconditionally to draw water, whatever, maybe just going to cut wood for the rest of your life, for all generations to come. So the Rebbe says that's the union of that third thing, which is Naisa Koidem Lanishma, which is so high that you couldn't even get a crown for it. It's just so high. He said, because there's two ways that you can be batel to the will of Hashem. He said, you can say, first of all, the Eibshter revealed to me all the things I've got to do, so I see them as much as I can, as much as my wisdom. I see this, I see that. Okay, I'm prepared to do that, and I'll do it without finding out all the pratim and all the dinim, and then I'll learn everything later as I go on, but I take on myself, I'll do it. So he said, that means that you're batel to the ratzon of the Eibshter, because he's already revealed to you, and you're batel to his ratzon. Well, then says the Rebbe that in the Alter Rebbe brings it all, that there's but the Rebbe, she's got this amazing explanation. And he says that in somebody who's got a rotzen, and particularly like the Eibishter, he said there's the union of the rotzen that he's revealed to you, and then there's what's called the Baal HaRotzen, that he's the Balabos over the rotzen, and he didn't reveal to you yet what that is. He's holding his right to have any rotzen he wants. He's what's called the Baal HaRotzen. He can produce any rotzen. Just the same by mental. Mitzad caprice, you can produce almost anything. Your rotzen. So he said that we became, at Matan Torah, by saying Naisa v'nishma, we became batel to the Eibishter, not with the rotzen that he already revealed to us, but we became rotzen to what's called Baal HaRotzen. We became batel to the Eibishter, how he's higher than the rotzen, and he's the one that produces the rotzen, and that becomes later a whole series of details. But we didn't know what he was going to produce. We didn't know what that rotzen was produced, but we became batel to the what's called the baalut of the rotzen, the ownership of the rotzen, not the rotzen itself. And Mamela said the Rebbe, there's nothing higher than that. And that's even higher than the two Kesorim. That's an unbelievable bittul. That's called bittul Baal HaRotzen. That's the Indian, a nice Kodim Nishma. And Ulai, that's what the Tesis Yontif means, that if you take on yourself everything, even if you don't know what it is yet, you've already got myself, you're automatically always going to be Ish Maisa, and then later on you understand. And I mean, let's move on. Look at all these big peoples, what they say, well, when you go out in the street putting tefillin on people, they don't know anything about it, they don't know what they're doing, it's just a lot of, verhackte cops and all sorts of shtus and hibli oil mazer and this. You come along, you hack tefillin and they try to poke fun at the whole idea of a lefizeh. We see that it's an amazing idea, because a mensch who doesn't know anything much, but he says, oh yeah, I'll put on tefillin, even though he doesn't really know a great deal about it, but he knows it's shayt to a yid, and that's one of the things in the Torah, the Eibush command. When he does that, he's like botel, even more than just a rotzon, he's botel to something he doesn't really know a great deal about, boys are regular. And that's what you might call bittul Baal HaRotzen. He's bottled to the owner of the rotten. He doesn't even really know what he's getting into, but he does it by Sa'arega. And that's a form of like Naisava Nishma, and that's the same with all the Miftoim. And the Rebbe, they're all based on that unbelievable principle that by giving you come into that mice of Merubin Me Hamosei, because Tefillin has got all sorts of mitzvahs in it. It's got mitzvahs Yichud Hashem and Ichweis Mitzvahs. As well known, there's quite a number of mitzvahs, and like the Gemara says in Masechet Kiddushin, the Huksha Kol HaTorah Kula LeTefillin. The whole Torah is compared to Tefillin. In other words, the Tefillin has got something clearly about it that includes all the Torah. So therefore, what a Yid puts on Tefillin, the way a lot of these people do, but Miftoim, are actually eating from Kabbalah HaTorah, nice of an Ishma. And remember, the Tesis Yontif is Megala Amor die Gesach, which is ausgehalten in Chassidus, that it's the idea of taking on yourself, even though you don't really know yet what it's all involved, or that's called Merubin. That's called Kil, that you've already got a huge library of mice that you still don't know about. But it's already yours in a way, and it's already reckoned for you that you do it, even though you may never come actually to do. There's certain other mitzvahs that we can't do now in the Golas. We're not able to until Moshiach will come. V'yibona beis hamikdash b'mheira v'yomeinu omen kein yirotzen b'poyo mamish. And then we'll be able to do certain of these mitzvahs. But mitzad the Kabbalah, we've already got it. Mitzad that inen of nice keder l'nishma. But that can't do our taste of his yontif. But Kamua, he did say all big reasons about the mitzvah. That was his principle. And it's a davar pele. And Lefizeh Efshar Hatimete according to Divrei Chassidus. Comes along the Rebbe Rashab in a famous Maimar in Tofrei Shayin Tes. Rebbe Rashab says over the Etzemina we say that Maisa have to be Koidim. Oh, sorry, how do you call it? Merubin. But they got to be, as it were, more than your Chochmah. Well, that tends to imply that there's some Ike Inen in the Inen of Maisa. Mamish in the Inen from doing a thing, Bapoyo, or Etzem of deed, or that tends to imply there's something in that which is higher than all the other Inyanim, Varalideh, what you Makabal, Kedivri Atesis Yodim, you Makabal on yourself. All the Inyanim in Maisa. But there are Mamela, you reach this unbelievable Shleimas, what afterwards your Torah fits into that, and your Torah becomes a complete and desirable Torah, the way the Eibusher really intends it, and the way the Eibusher really wants it. So the Rashab said, what is the good linian of Maisa? And he brings that Gemara which says that Godel Talmud, that learning is only great, Chokhmah is only great because it brings you anyway to Maisa is a sign from that Gufa that Maisa is really higher than the Inif and Chokhmah. So the Rashab said, over there amongst all the other things that he said, over the Nakuda is like this. And that is that we see to get into the world of Maisa is very difficult. It's much easier to learn high things and to kochsach and also to high in yonim, or to mamish schlep yourself around and mamish do something for Maisa, actually to be a practical man and do things papoyo. Well, that's very difficult because a man's is naturally inertia. He likes to just stay the way he is. He'll listen to all sorts of high inyanim. You'll teach him high things. He'll philosophize with you the whole day. He maybe even offer you a nice drink or something into the bargain. And he maybe knock you away at a piece of cake or something. Wisdom, gesundheit, all sorts of high inyanim. Wonderful. But actually do something, but that's a tremendous break and jump. Therefore, it's written, Kol Hashanikra B'Shmiya, the Eibusha says, Barasiv, Yavchativ, Af Asisiv. And it's put down and says that in order to get to Asisiv, even though you had to make a special Af, you had to jump over a special new barrier to get into Asiya. They had Barasi, Yavchativ, Asisiv. There's a big gap in the middle that you have to jump over. By a mensch to overcome the natural inertia of the body, that's a tremendous power to move into the world of Maisa. And to know that a Maisa who Aika Belosam Pirchiovis. So therefore said the Rebbe that that's the Indian of Bittul Hayesh, that there's nothing greater in the Indian of doing Maisa to give you a Zgula to be Mavatal your own. To be Mavatal your own yesh. And he said the whole Chassidus and the whole Torah and the whole Indian of the Eibusha that he wanted was Bittul Hayesh. He said forget about Bittul Matziyas. Bittul Matziyas is where you don't exist anymore. It's on such a high level. You're not there anymore. But to be there and to be a feel Hayesh and to feel the world and to be involved in it, nonetheless, to devote yourself entirely to the Eibusha, well, that is the greatest thing that the Eibusha was looking for. He wasn't looking for Bittul Matziyas, he was looking for Bittul Hayesh. That's a chiddush for you guys. And he was looking not for Bittul Matziyas, he was looking for Bittul Hayesh. That's what the Rebbe says, the founder of Tom Chitzmim, that's what he said. And he said, in order to be Mavatal Hayesh, he said, for that you need tremendous koyches. That is an unbelievable power that Nemtzach from very, very high, tremendously high in the Sinas Koya, that a man should be perfect in Maisa. He should be perfect in deed. He said that comes from Atzma saying. And therefore the Zohar Kodesh says, Bina Bahai Asa Iloah. The Bina is on a very, very high madrega or maila. Of a Asiya Le'ela. Of a doing is even higher. In other words, all the understanding and all the believable madregas of understanding, one deed, deed is much higher and incomparably higher. In order to do deed, you got to break the yesh. Bitul Hayeh. The whole meaning of the Torah was given that there should be the information. So, Bitul Hayesh is that Bitul we described before, Bitul Baal Harotzin, a complete giving yourself away. If you can do that, you're already in a world of unlimited koya, unlimited abilities, and therefore that's called merubin. That's called more incomparably greater than the limited world of Chokhmah. Ki Chokhmah is only a revelation, and Bittul Hayesh is Atzma. And from that we see the Maila of Kosher, of Maas of Merubim, Michokmosei, then the Rebbe says that since the koyach is so great that it comes from Atzma Saint Sefer, that's what gives you the ability to be in such a level of Merubim, Maas of Merubim, or that gives you the power, but to have emes understanding and emes insight into what has to be done. That in Torah Gufa, to understand and to know what is Torah all about. So he said, when you learn Torah that way, then you learn Torah in a way that you're not misaliv, you're not fadreid, you don't know, you get to the emes, how it was really meant by the Eibusha when he gave that particular prat in Torah. And Kavavur in the Emsha that we happen to be learning, Emsha Samavov, later on he's Mavaya, that all in Barichas Gedela, it has to be the year of Shvat, Koydemis Chachmazim, when it comes to Arichas and Maisa Merubin Chachmazim. The same kind of Mochim Akshol Laharik Bechol Zeh. because we have no time, and also doubtless everybody say that they have no koach either, including myself. Therefore, we have to only say that in every generation there's a inyan from Merubim Mas of Yosef Michok Moshe, according to that generation, and that's Miskala Al Yedei, the Rebbe and the Nasi and the Emes Nasi in that generation. In our generation, what is the Merubim Mas of Yosef Michok Moshe? What is the inyan from Moshiach? And that's the inyan from getting out into the world and changing the world in such a way that it will be the Iskalas of Melech HaMashiach and the Gula Shlema, take it from Yad and Niyam. In other words, to forget all the Cheshbainas. Not like we heard the other week, one of the guys told us he'd been up with a group of guys, they said, oh yeah, we want to get into Gan Eden, what about Mashiach? We just want to get to Gan Eden, want to meet my Zayda in Gan Eden, what's going to be with my Zayda? We're going to meet up with him in Gan Eden. Okay, Islamite. It's very nice. But what's going to be with the whole world? What's going to be with the Davis, the Steel, the Titanium? Who's it with that? My Moshiach. And so that's the whole problem. That you got all these peoples that you say to them, listen here, if they do what they want to do, God forbid, the sakona is unbelievable for all the people in the country. I say, well, no, by me, I'm inside my little bubble, by me, leave me alone. The bombs fall over there, let them fall, but not in my bubble, in my television, no bombs. And the famous marshal with Remendel all of a sudden, he told the famous marshal, you don't know the famous marshal? Of course you do. But there was once a ship was traveling at sea, and all of a sudden the captain said, "Oi, kafal." They found a hole in the bottom of the ship, and it's in the middle of its journey, and the water's starting to come in. So what do? You have to get all the people on the ship, not just the crew, all the passengers and all the peoples, but they're on the ship would go take buckets, go down into the bottom and pass the buckets along and throw the water over the side and make a whole line. There, with all the water's being thrown over, and that's the only way to preserve the ship until eventually everybody's going to work day and night, slipping the water with the buckets, raising the margin. So the captain, he gets everybody, everybody's working. Come on, I don't want to save the skins, I want to save the ship, everything. All of a sudden the captain notices that somebody's missing. There's one guy that he's not here and he's not slipping water. And who's this? Well, he looks up, all of a sudden he sees that there's a guy who bought the most posh cabin, the best position and the whole ship, lots of furniture, the whole thing, the Spitz, all the cabins, and he's in his room, and he's not working with everybody. So the captain said, what sort of chutzpah is that, so I have to get him down to work, we need every hand. Goes and knocks on the guy's door and he says, listen here, I gave around all the Ramco, the announcing system, there's a hole, one in the bottom of the ship, and everybody's got to ship water, it's got to work. So the guy says, me? So he says, yes, you. And he said, me? He said, look at my beautiful cabin there. He said, you can look all around my cabin and you won't find one hole. He said, there's no hole in my cabin. He said, why should I slip water? The captain said, who's the Meshuggah? He said, me or you? He said, who's Meshuggah? Either you or me. Did you have to realize that the hole is by you also? You don't see it in your cabin, but the hole is in by you also. What an amazing marshal, right? And that's exactly what's happening today. No hole, in our cabin there's no hole. Why should we worry? There's 6,000 rockets have fallen on Sderot and that small area around it since the Gerush of Gush Katif. 6,000 rockets. That's an unbelievable thing, but it's also an unbelievable nest. It's a little weedy area of a couple of square miles. 6,000 rockets have fallen. And Baruch Hashem, not Kamashi Yaduali, nobody's been killed. A lot of people have been, completely fadrayed, and their lives have been messed up almost irreparably, etc., etc. But Mamish casualties I haven't heard of. Now that's an unbelievable nace. It's never been in history a nace like that. Do you hear anybody talk about it? Do you hear anybody walk around saying there's some unspeakable nace that's happening the whole time? And it's terrible. People should say it. Maybe we should say hello for such a nace. Yeah? Oh, no, nobody even talks about talk about Shvat. Tony Schraden for that. It's forbidden to talk about Shvat. We can't talk about our little shtetl where we are, we're getting the money from the Memshola. Don't mention anything about Shvat. Nobody talks about it. I figure the from you. That should be the most unbelievable thanksgiving to Hashem that's ever been. 6,000 rockets on a couple of square miles. Nobody's been killed. Never been as on there. And you said to some of these from in Yerushalayim, but I don't want to be attached. And they said, well, that's not the traditional way to talk. Where does that come from? Because Moshe is Merubim Mima'asa. When it comes to the union of our generation, our whole generation is bringing Moshiach. And they say, oh, no, you've got to learn Torah, don't worry about Moshiach. So that's something else. It's Avis' body, not our body. Learn Torah, yeah. I know even of a Moshe that's supposed to be called Chabad, and he's law for Espazir. And they said, oh, we talk about Yiddishkeit, not about Moshiach. We don't talk about Moshiach. We talk about Yiddishkeit. One of the 12, one of the 13 Ikarim of the whole Yiddishkeit is Moshiach. According to the Rambam, and everybody says he's right. It's just unbelievable, because we don't want to face the world of Maaseh, of Merubim Chachmas. We don't undertake that unbelievable commitment of Isaac and Ishmael. And ever the Rebbe said that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. It seems to you very nice. It doesn't seem to you very nice. That's what you did in Mount Torah. They didn't say, tell us what's going to be nice. Let's first of all what's going to be nice, what's going to be geschmack. Come on, where are you, man? Where are you? Said, we want geschmack and Sachen. You didn't say, no. But to your Baal or whatever you'll say. And the Alter Rebbe says clearly, schlep water. Okay, we schlep water. And that's what the Rebbe Melech Mashiach says. You've got to talk about Mashiach. You've got to bring Mashiach. You've got to do things to stop the terrible drift of the whole world. You've got to bring Mashiach. I'm sitting in my beautiful little cabin. That's the whole secret of Isaac and Ishmael. And ever we can only get into this unbelievable spirit of what the Mishnah tells us, Pirkei Avos, which is even though the Gemara says that's a milsa de Chasidusa, it's for Chassidish people. Oh, we're going to focus for the Chassidish. Let's get involved. Let's know that that's the Ikar Shabi Ikarim. That's the Chok Moshe Merubah, Maas of Merubah Chok Moshe. Or Mamela will know the Torah in a completely different way. We'll know the Torah the way Melech HaMashiach take it miyad. He's going to reveal the whole Torah. Amen. Kain Yehi. Amen.